Thinking in absolutes. Life is easy when those we love live close to us and those we hate live far away. Or when those we love look like us and those we hate look different. Then it is clear whom to love and whom to hate. In pre-modern times, the distinction between us and them was clearer than it is today. For the native tribe, the Manjucas of Brazil, the distinction between friend and foe was embedded within their language. They were able to distinguish easily between themselves, whom they referred to as people, and the rest of the population of the world, who were spoken of as the equivalent of huntable animals. Our own language, too, retains a vestige of this distinction between friend and foe, based on the idea that only strangers are enemies. The Latin origin of the word hostility is hostis, whose original meaning was stranger. It's easy to keep track of whom you're supposed to hate if all the people who are unfamiliar to you are the enemy. Evidence suggests that infants also think in absolutes and have not yet developed a complex psychology mechanism that permits the acceptance of love and hate existing together, or of a loved one being an enemy. Love and hate are kept separate. As infants, we are able to separate love and hate as easily as we do because of a psychological mechanism that is imperative for our psychic survival in early infancy. But danger arises if we continue to carry this psychic operation with us, even when our need for it has been outgrown. This psychic mechanism, splitting, was first described by Melanie Klein. It means that we and the world around us are seen in either or terms. Klein called it all good and all bad. Imagine a young infant's confusion over the fact that the good mother who feeds, satisfies, and relieves the infant from distress is the same person who fails at times to do all these things. Inconsistent behavior is hard for us to fathom at any age, but it is particularly threatening in an infant who is totally dependent on good mothering. In order to preserve the integrity of the good mother image, the infant perceives the good mother and bad mother as separate mothers. Good and bad are split from each other. The loved good mother is then effectively protected from the hate of the infant. This clear distinction between good and bad continues throughout infancy. By the end of the first 6 months, the child can distinguish between strangers and people he knows. It is surely not coincidental that the first signs of anger are manifested within this same time frame. The infant shows a marked preference for those he knows and a wariness for those unfamiliar to him. This uncertainty develops into a full-blooded fear around the end of the first year. And no matter how much reassurance the mother gives that the nice lady who is a stranger means no harm, the infant refuses to be reassured. Fear may be a part of what the infant experiences, but there is anger and hate in those wails as well, paralleling the primitive mind of native tribes like the Manjucas. The infant knows that it is an us and them kind of world. Psychoanalyst Bruno Bettelheim shows how fairy tales reveal to us the true concerns in a child's unconscious. One of the most prevalent themes dealt with in fairy tales is the split between the good and the bad mother. Story after story tells of a cruel mother or stepmother and the opposing good fairy godmother who rescues the poor beleaguered child and transforms her into a princess or gives her her knight. In writing about this seemingly magical process of transformation, Bettelheim refers to how Little Red Riding Hood grandmother suddenly turns into a wolf, wearing the kindly old lady clothes. How silly a transformation when viewed objectively, and how frightening, but when viewed in terms of a child's ways of experiencing, is it really any more scary than the sudden transformation of his own kindly grandma into a figure who threatens his very sense of self when she humiliates him for a pants wedding accident. To the child, Grandma is no longer the same person she was just a moment before. She became an ogre. For the child, knowing that the person whom he hates is the same person whom he loves is often too frightening a thought even to contemplate. Fusing love and hate. When we fail to recognize that people can be both bad and good at the same time, we are stuck thinking in infantile terms, unable to move beyond this good and bad splitting mechanism. An example of this dynamic playing itself out in adulthood can be seen in the Lynn family. Lori and Dave Lynn were having serious disagreements about their teenage daughter. Dave's point of view was that Mary was an adventuresome, fiery youth willing to spread her wings to experience life's varieties. Lori, on the other hand, saw Mary as an unruly, undisciplined, and disrespectful of the family's need for order and regularity. They never knew when Mary would be home for dinner. She always took off on the weekends with her friends, her mother suspecting that she was doing disrespectful, perhaps illegal things, her father believing that she could and should be trusted, and that Mary was just out for a good time. Harmony in this family was restored only after Lori and Dave came to understand that they were both locked in an infantile manner of handling their positive and negative feelings towards their daughter. Lori could see only all bad. Dave could see only all good. For resolution of this family's difficulties, good and bad had to become fused. Dave had to recognize that there was a rebellious aspect to Mary's behavior, that in fact Mary did derive some pleasure from being so provocative to her mother, and that she had an aggressive interest in keeping her parents apart and being Daddy's only little darling. Lori, on the other hand, had to come to the point of acknowledging that her daughter was not a juvenile delinquent, that she was responsible and mature in many ways.